What does it mean to walk where no light dares linger to carry a burden that whispers of ruin, in the deep places of the world where stone weeps and silence hums? There are truths older than the stars, questions carved in the roots of mountains before the sun was kindled, long before Sauron's shadow stretched across Middle-earth, before the ring's fire was forged in the heart of Mount Doom. There were nameless things gnawing at the bones of the earth. They had no master, no purpose save to endure, to abide in the dark, where even the valor did not tread. Their presence is a riddle without answer. What is the weight of a soul that persists when all else fades into shadow? There is a song that echoes in the marrow of the world, not the radiant chorus of Ilúvatar's creation, but a quieter strain, a melody woven of steps, taken in doubt and defiance. It is the song of those who wander, who bear burdens no eye can measure, who walk though the road promises no rest. Frodo. Baggins heard this song, though he could not name it, as he stepped from the Shire's green embrace the ring, a cold weight against his chest. It was no mere trinket, this circle of gold, but a chain forged in the fires of doom. Its voice a ceaseless whisper of power, of safety, of dominion over all that might be. Yet Frodo walked not because he was mighty, but because he was small, small enough to slip through the cracks of fate to bear what greater hearts could not endure. The road is a cruel teacher, offering neither comfort nor deceit. To walk is to leave something behind, a home, a hope, a fragment of the self that will never return. Aragorn knew this as he roamed the wilds, his cloak stained with the dust of forgotten paths. He was the heir of Isildur, yet no crown adorned his brow. They called him Strider, a name that cloaked the weight of his blood, the legacy that hunted him through the years. What is a king without a throne? What is a man whose birthright is a broken sword? In the solitude of the wild, Aragorn wrestled with fear, not of death, but of failure. To falter was to betray not only himself, but all who clung to the hope of Elendil's line. Yet he walked his stride steady, his gaze fixed on a horizon he might never reach. Fear is not the enemy, but the mirror, reflecting the shape of our doubts. In the mines of Moria, the Fellowship gazed into this mirror. Moria was no mere ruin, but a cathedral of memory, where the echoes of dwarven hammers mingled with the ghosts of Balin's doomed hope. Gandalf led them through the dark, his staff, a frail star against the weight of stone. Even he, the gray pilgrim, felt the tremor of the deep places. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. He said, his voice heavy with the knowledge of ages. The nameless things stirred their forms unseen, their hunger eternal. They were not Sauron's servants, nor Morgoth's spawn. They were older, born of the earth's first silence, when the world was still raw and unformed. To face them was to confront the unknown, the terror of what lies beyond the edge of reason. Gandalf fell in Moria, not to the Balrog alone, but to the burden he bore. He was the guide, the flame-bearer, the one who stood between the Fellowship and despair. Yet even light casts a shadow, and Gandalf's was the truth that he could not save them all. His battle with the Balrog was no mere clash of power, but a reckoning with the cost of defiance. Flame met flame, and the bridge of Khazad-dûm shattered. Gandalf fell, and the Fellowship wept, believing hope had perished with him. But hope is not a fire that dies. It is a seed buried in the dark, awaiting the rain. Gandalf's fall was a passage, a descent into the abyss where even the nameless things could not follow. He returned as the White, not because he was unbroken, but because he had faced the dark and chosen to rise. Loss is the wound that love leaves behind, the scar that teaches us to endure. Samwise Gamgee knew this as he walked beside Frodo, his heart heavy with the weight of loyalty. He was no hero, no sage, no lord, only a gardener, a hobbit who cherished the scent of earth and the bloom of simple things. Yet Sam carried Frodo when the ring's burden grew too great, his arms steady, his voice a quiet hymn against the desolation of Mordor. "I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo," he said, "but I can carry you." In those words lies a truth older than the stars. Love is not the absence of weight, but the strength to bear it together. Sam's heart broke, 1,000 times. Broke for the Shire he might never see, for Frodo's fading light, for the innocence they had both lost. Yet he walked not for glory, but for the promise of a dawn he could not yet see. Temptation is the voice that speaks in the silence, promising what the heart craves. The ring whispered to all who drew near, power to Boromir, peace to Frodo, eternity to Galadriel. In Lothlorien, the Lady of the Wood faced her own trial. The ring was offered not by force, but by choice, and in its gleam she saw a queen, not dark, but radiant, terrible as the storm. "All shall love me and despair," she said, and her voice trembled with the weight of possibility. Galadriel was ancient wise beyond the reckoning of men, yet even she felt the pull of dominion. To refuse the ring was to refuse not only power but the illusion of control, the dream that one could shape the world to their will. She passed the test, but not without cost. "I shall diminish," she said, "and go into the west and remain Galadriel." Her choice was a surrender not to weakness, but to the truth that some burdens are too great for any one soul to carry. Faith is the step taken in shadow, the hand that reaches for what cannot be seen. Éowyn knew this as she stood on the Pelennor fields, her heart a tempest of grief and defiance. She was no man yet. She faced the Witch King, her sword raised against the terror that no man could slay. "I am no man," she cried, and in her voice was the echo of all who have stood against despair. Éowyn's faith was not in victory, but in the act of resistance, the refusal to let darkness claim the final word. Her blow shattered the Witch King, but it also shattered her. Her body broke and her spirit adrift in the shadow of her deed. Yet in that breaking she found a new path, not as a shield maiden, but as a healer, one who mends what has been torn. Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the courage to act, despite it, to plant a seed in the ruins and trust it will grow. Hope is the heaviest burden, for it demands belief in what cannot be known. Frodo carried this burden to the slopes of Mount Doom, his body frail, his spirit a frayed thread. The ring was no longer a temptation, but a chain dragging him toward the fire that would consume it. Gollum followed a shadow of what he once was, his heart devoured by the thing that had unmade him. In the end, it was not Frodo's strength that destroyed the ring, but his weakness, his failure to cast it into the fire, his surrender to its power. Yet Gollum in his madness completed what Frodo could not, falling into the flames with the ring he both loved and loathed. The mountain burned, and Frodo stood in its shadow not as a hero but as a soul who had walked to the edge of the world and returned. Hope is not the promise of triumph but the willingness to endure, to carry the light even when it sears. Silence is the space where the soul listens, where the world's clamor fades and truth speaks. In the Grey Havens, Frodo found this silence. The Shire was saved, but not for him. The wounds he bore the memory of the ring, the sting of Shelob, the ash of Mordor could not be healed in the green fields of home. He stood on the shore, his friends beside him, and looked to the west where the sea sang of a land beyond grief. "I have been too deeply hurt, Sam," he said, and his voice was a whisper against the tide. To leave was not to flee, but to seek to follow the song that had called him from the beginning. The ship sailed and the havens faded, but the silence remained a silence not of absence but of presence, of a truth that lingers when words fall away. Legacy is the shadow we cast beyond our days, the echo of our choices in the years we will not see. Aragorn became king, not because he sought the crown, but because he bore the weight of his father's dreams. The sword was reforged, the kingdom restored, but the cost was etched in his eyes, eyes that had seen too many farewells, too many pyres. Arwen chose mortality, her immortality traded for a fleeting life with the man she loved. Their love was a flame that burned bright but brief, a star that shone in the twilight of Middle-earth. Their son would rule, but he would not know the wilds. His father walked the doubts his mother carried. Legacy is not the name we leave, but the paths we tread for those who follow. The nameless things still stir in the deep places, their hunger older than Sauron's shadow. They are the fears we cannot name, the burdens we cannot cast off, the silences we cannot fill. Yet they are not the end of the tale. The song endures, carried by those who walk, who fall, who rise again. It is sung in the laughter of hobbits, the vows of kings, the tears of those who sail west. It is the song of the small, the broken, the faithful, those who bear the light, though it blinds them, who carry the burden, though it breaks them. What does it mean to resist the darkness? It is to walk when the road is long, to love when the cost is great, to hope when the dawn is far. It is to stand in the shadow of Moria, to hear the nameless things stir, and to step forward, not because you are fearless, but because you are called. The world is vast, and we are small, but in our steps the song endures. It fades now, not into silence, but into memory, a melody that lingers, waiting for the next voice to carry it forward. If this tale has stirred your heart, if the song of Middle-earth calls to you, join us on this journey. Subscribe to our channel, where we weave the myths and morals of Tolkien's world into reflections on the soul's eternal path. Share this video with those who seek the light in the shadow, and let us walk the road together.